Hey, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to do another video today. So we're going to record and make our virtual machines that we're going to use in the Windows Administrative Security course number 2. So the WAS2 course, which is specifically titled Active Directory, because we're going to build a Windows domain and configure the Active Directory for our network here. So we're going to use the same topology that we used in our WAS1 course for Windows Admin Security 1. We created an Edmonton network. Our Edmonton network was our home corporate network. We had Mexico City and Halifax networks, as well as an external network switch to connect to our global market. What we're going to focus on now is just the Edmonton topology. We're going to focus on just the Edmonton network topology for these following machines right here. So what I'm going to circle in red is what we'll build for our Windows Administrative Security course. I'm going to draw a line through Exchange 1 and a line through SQL Database 1. We do not require those virtual machines yet. Okay, we do not require them yet. The worst thing that we can do now is get it too convoluted, too overwhelming, too discombobulated. So let's just keep it straightforward and simple. So we have one switch. We have one private switch that we're going to make in our Hyper-V manager. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 machines. 4 VMs in my Edmonton network. Of those 4 VMs, 3 are servers, and 1 is a Windows 10. 1 is a Windows 10 right there, as you can see from the hieroglyphics in the lower right. Okay, so what we're going to do now is let's go into our Hyper-V manager. We'll launch it, and we'll get building our machines. Then we can start configuring and going through all the labs. So just go into your search bar in the bottom left, type in Hyper-V for Hyper-V Manager. We'll bring up Hyper-V Manager, and we will get going. Okay, so inside of our Hyper-V Manager, what we're going to do now is first create the switch. So we have to refer back to this topology. We're going to make the Edmonton switch that we see identified up here. So we have one Edmonton private network switch. Let's go ahead and get that built. So go down here on the right-hand side. We're going to select Virtual Switch Manager. So we're going to select Virtual Switch Manager on our right-hand side. Okay, then we're going to go with a private switch. Let's create a new private switch. We'll call it the Edmonton switch. Edmonton network. Okay, now private switch, we're going to select down here. So the only things that we have to do is make this change right here, okay? We're going to go right here, Edmonton network, and we have a private network right here. Hit apply, hit OK. Awesome, so we have the switch made. Confirm that the switch is made by going back to Virtual Switch Manager on the right-hand side. Click on it once and you'll see all the switches that you've made for your different labs displayed right here. So there's my Edmonton network switch. Okay, now what we're going to do here is we're going to build our 3 virtual servers and our 1 virtual Windows 10. So I'll build 1 server and 1 Windows 10 and you have those demos in front of you. So we'll go here next. So let's start with our Edmonton server. Here's our first page, hit next, EDM, type in server 1. Sorry, domain controller. Let's build a DC. Call it DC1 for the domain controller. Always start with the domain controller. As we learned in NATO and as we did last month in the WAS1 course, your domain controller will be the server who oversees your global catalog, which is your Active Directory. Okay, so that's the feature on your server. That's the database that keeps track of everyone who comes into your network and leaves, who's authorized and verified to be authenticated to come into your network and leave. So employees, vendors, whomever that you create is allowed to join your network, specifically your subnet, access shared corporate resources that are contained on your server. It is the gold mine of your business operations. Okay, so we're going to keep it nice and secure. So with our Edmonton DC1, make note of the folder path that displays down here. No different than what you saw in NATO and WAS1. Just remember this folder path. That's where your virtual hard disks are going to be contained. That's where the virtual hard disks are going to be contained. Okay, so hit next right here. We're going to keep it at generation 1 because it's a Windows virtual machine. Hit next. We're going to go with 4096 megabytes, 4096 megabytes for it. And we are going to deselect. We're going to deselect dynamic memory. So turn off dynamic memory. Hit next. Come to connection here. We're going to go with a default switch. I have the Edmonton-network. I'm starting with the default switch now as a best practice when building virtual machines so that I have Wi-Fi connection in case I want to modify or make changes to my virtual machines. I can always go in after the fact when they're built and then change it and take it off the default switch and move it to my private Edmonton network switch. Go next here. Okay, create a virtual hard disk. Allow it just to make that virtual hard disk for you, which will show up here. Coming right back, I'll show you quick. Here's that folder path that we mentioned before. This is where that virtual hard disk gets made, right? You make your virtual machine, a copy gets made and goes to that folder. In here. Okay, let's crank this up to 60. We'll give the 60 gigabytes of hard drive. Go next. Okay, install an OS right here. So the second option, install your ISO file, install the ISO file, select. Okay, install the ISO file down here, select. Enables the browse feature for your ISO, select. Okay, we're looking for a Windows Server 2022. Got this one downloaded from March 1st of this year, March 21st. I'll go with the most recent one I've downloaded. Hit next. Finish. Okay, now come back in my Hyper-V. Go ahead. Oops, before I turn it on, we're not going to turn them on just yet. Go up to File and Exit in case you had trigger finger like I did. What we want to do is just finish the configuration of our Edmonton domain controller before we actually complete the install. So let's go right click on your DC1, go into settings, inside of settings here. Let's see, so memory, double check, 4096 megabytes, 4 gigabytes is your startup RAM. Perfect, fine. Dynamic memory, make sure it's turned off, One processor is fine. All your other defaults inside of the settings are just fine. Come down to checkpoints right here. Checkpoints you're going to find is your third item underneath management. Find it here, click it once. Deselect checkpoints. Keep your checkpoints deselected. Hit apply. Hit OK. Okay, nice. Now after this, what we're going to do is we're going to make one more. We'll make our Edmonton server next here. Next, okay, EDM -SRV1 for our Edmonton server 1. Okay, that's the next machine on our Edmonton, or SVR, sorry. We'll go SVR1 and we'll be very specific about the spelling for it. So SVR1 for Edmonton server 1. Hit next. Generation 1 we'll keep 4096 startup megabytes for your RAM. Turn off dynamic memory. Not connected down to default switch. Okay, for the size of the virtual hard disk, again, we're jumping up to 60. Going to do 60 right here. Next. Second button right here. ISO right here. And again, we're doing a Windows server. We're going to use the Windows server for this one too. Next. Finish. Okay, pop back in. Okay, same thing. Right-click SVR1, go to Settings. Come down to checkpoints, turn off checkpoints, deselect them, and hit apply. Okay, awesome. Now what we want to do is go back in, and we're going to go to Edmonton router. Let's do the Edmonton router next. When we build a router in our Hyper-V, we always use the server's ISO. You'll use the server's ISO file. So we go back in, we're going to go here. So when you see an Edmonton router to be built in Hyper-V Manager, in the absence of an actual router itself, because Microsoft doesn't manufacture routers, does not have them configured in here, then the server's ISO for Windows Server 2022, we will use to build the router. So go new, virtual machine, next. And then here we're going to go EDM -SVR1. Edmonton -SVR1, next. Generation 1, next. Okay, now we're going to come up here. Let's do this. We got 4096 because it's still a server. We're going to turn off deselect dynamic memory. default switch to start it. Next. Sorry, called it SVR1. Have to call it RTR1. Why? Because it's the Edmonton router. That's my bad. Call it Edmonton-router. So come back again. We're going to be RTR1 Edmonton-router. We're going to use this as a router, which is like a physical piece of hardware that shapes our network traffic and can transfer our data packets from one subnet to another subnet, from one business department to another, from one location to another. Okay. Go with generation 1, 4009, 6000, 4096 megabytes for your RAM. Turn off dynamic memory. Default switch to start, default switch to start, and then we'll move it back to a private network after. 60 gigabytes, fine for your startup RAM, or sorry, for your hard drive. Hit next. We're going to use an ISO. As we said, we're going to use the Windows Server ISO to build our Edmonton router. Windows Server right there. Boom. Next. And finish. Okay, now we have one more machine left, right? Because we're going to build these machines. So far, keeping track from our topology, what we built. Edmonton Network Virtual Switch. Then I have Edmonton DC1, SVR1, and router. Now we're going to build a Windows 10 machine for this guy. The client, when you see CL1, that's your client machine, Windows 10. Don't need Exchange 1, don't need SQL for now. All right, so back here, going in, I'm going to go new, virtual machine, next. Okay, EDM-CL1, next. Generation 1, next. Okay, 409, it's actually 2048. It's a client machine. Windows 10 just needs 2048. Turn off dynamic, hit next. Okay, down to default switch, hit next. For size, we're going to get into 60 here, go next. Okay, install an ISO file selected. We're going to go with the Windows 10 ISO. Select this one, Windows 10. Next, and finish. Okay, so now we're going to configure all 4 machines. We'll finish setting up here. So let's go into the DC1. Turn on your DC1. Always start with the DC1. The domain controller will be like our brain, our neural network, like the heartbeat for the whole virtual network. So we'll start with that one for configuration. Now, when we set up this, we're going to go through 6 steps that we have to do inside of each of these virtual machines before we even start configuring them to take on their roles, okay? So go ahead, hit next, and hit install now. When you get to this screen here, it has to be the 4th window. Go there. Click here. Hit next. Always has to be custom. Always has to be custom. We're not doing an upgrade, not like right from the start. Please select custom right here. Go with custom, hit next. May as well get 4 installs on the go so that we respect your time and go through it. So DC1, let's do the SVR1 next. Let's do SVR1 next. So let's double click on this one, turn him on. This bad boy fired up, and then we get this guy configured for you. Same thing when we get to this install screen, let's go with next and hit install right now. So a lot of this is a retread from what we did in CHHS, in NATO, in WAS1 with building these machines, all right? Practice makes perfect. Just remember every time that you're building a Windows server, right, a Windows domain controller or a Windows router in Hyper-V using the Windows Server ISO, the only option to ever pick is this 4th one. You need to have the data center and the desktop show up in there so that you get the graphical user interface and you get all the bells and whistles that comes with the data center. Hit next. Come down here, click on this, hit next. Okay, for upgrade, we always do custom, hit next. Oh, while we're waiting here, I'll say hi, Sarah. All right. Okay, while this one loads up, let's just go back and get the next one fired up. So we're going to turn on Edmonton router here to configure. Double click and turn on. And again, for the Edmonton router, we use the Windows Server ISO. Okay, so this Edmonton router will serve the purpose of us configuring a router to connect our Edmonton topology eventually to the Halifax and Mexico City networks. Okay, again, always the fourth one. And I'm just repeating the steps from last time, always the fourth one on the bottom there, data center desktop evaluation. We always select the clean installation. It's not an upgrade. We're not inheriting previous settings and permissions. We're doing a clean installation. What I'm going to do now is we have all three servers going here, finishing their installation updates. Once they're ready to go, we will reboot these and then just finish the configuration where we have to set up the password for the administrator's account. So I'll briefly pause these. Yours will still be going, getting files ready for installation and then doing the install of the features. When they're done, we will reconvene and go inside the machines to finish the install. Okay, so let's return. So right now what we have are our virtual machines finished being installed. Let's set up the last few configuration steps for it. So password. Let's use our good old generic password for it. Turn on clear text. Here it is. Nothing fancier than that. Uppercase P, lowercase a, $, W0. So that's the numeral 0, not a capital O, and then RD. Okay. We'll duplicate this password and go here. Then we'll hit finish. Okay, we'll do these with the other machines on the line here. Edmonton server 1 getting ready to start over. And then whom do we have here? Edmonton router. Okay, so we're going to sign into our Edmonton DC. So when we go in here, I'll type up a document. We're going to make the Edmonton router or 192.168.0.1. So we're going to give the first available IP address in our subnet to the Edmonton router, Why? Because the router in any network always takes the first available IP. So here's the addressing table that we're going to follow. .0.2 m. Okay, and then finally for the Edmonton, a client 192.168.0.11. Hit yes right here. All right, let's do this one here. Same thing, just using the same password that we did before. You get your server screen locked like this as a default lock. Here's how we're going to unlock it. Your Control Alt Delete or keyboard unlock is found up here. These three gray blocks up here. So we're just going to move up and hit unlock. So our DC1 is set up okay. We're going to do, now we have to do the 6 steps that we do inside of every single virtual machine to finish configuring them. Turn on SSDP, turn on UPnP, okay? Turn on network discovery file sharing, turn off Windows Defender Firewall, assign an IP address, and rename the virtual machine. We have to do 6 steps inside of each virtual machine that we build. So we'll start with the first DC1 here. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom left, find the start menu. Now, my taskbar you see in the bottom of this screen is for my host PC. So let's change that to minimize this screen. Take a moment to resize your virtual machine. Resize the virtual machine screen right here. And come right. All right, so now we're going to go down to the start menu, right click it and go to computer management. Okay, now come back here. We're going to go into here, local users and groups. Go down to services, double click, open up the services bar here with me. Double click services, click it once. Now in the middle box right here, it's going to go alphabetical order for what you're looking for. So we are looking for SSDP. So again, come down here to SSDP. SSDP discovery. Okay, we're going to enable it right there. Automatic, apply, hit OK. Next we need is UPnP for Universal Plug and Play Device Host. We'll find that right here, UPnP, double click, disable to automatic, turn on, apply, OK. Okay, so we'll minimize this. Come back into this window. We're going to find our File Explorer. We'll find our File Explorer on the bottom right here. This folder, click it once. All right, inside of File Explorer, let's do this. Let's right-click Network, go down to Properties. Okay, inside of Properties, we'll go here to Change Adapter Settings. Sorry, we'll start on the bottom and work our way up. Windows Defender Firewall right here. Turn Windows Defender Firewall on or off. Turn off, hit OK. Okay, now we're going to come up here to change notification settings. Okay, so we're good. That one's set up. Hit the back arrow once. Come up here to change advanced sharing settings, turn on network discovery, collapse this network, private network, collapse it by going up here, open up this one, turn on network discovery, collapse it, come down here, turn on network discovery, turn on, and hit save changes. Okay, perfect. So that's set up like that. Awesome. Now the next step that we have to do after this is we're going to go in and we have to rename our computer. So we're going to click here on computer name, give it the name of what we called it inside of Hyper-V. So this one will be Edmonton-Domain Controller 1. Hit apply, hit OK. Okay, now we're going to come back here to File Explorer, right-click Network, go to Properties, and go up here to Change Adapter Settings. Right-click, Properties, IPv4, Properties, change the following. And again, we're going to give the IP address. We're going to use this IP address for our DC1. We're going to give it 192.168.0.2, 192.168.0.2. Okay, the gateway is going to be the router's IP address eventually, so just give it the 01. And type in the loopback address on the DC1. For right now, it will be the default DNS server. So IP address 192.168.0.2. Subnet mask is a default class C, as in a /24, as in 255.255.255.0, and your default gateway 192.168.0.1. And OK, hit close. Awesome. So now we're going to reboot this machine. Left click on our start menu, click on power, and go to restart. We've made all 6 changes. When it comes back online, it will be good to go. Now let's continue with the other machines that we have here. So here's the next one. Let's do this guy right here. Okay, so now I'm logging into the Edmonton router. I'll make the 6 same changes to the Edmonton router that we did to the Edmonton domain controller. However, for this one, what I have to do is also make the IP address on the router 192.168.0.1, 192.168.0.1. Here's our DC1, the domain controller one, coming back online. Okay, so this one's already configured, already installed. We've made the 6 changes that we always make. And again, those 6 changes that we always make inside a virtual machine, we always do. Going back to what we did in CHHS course, NATO course, and the Windows Admin Security 1 course. Okay, when we see this blue bar come on the right-hand side, that's awesome. We always hit yes for okay. That's perfect. Okay, so I can see my name in the upper right with the name of the machine, so the Edmonton router. So I'm going to finish configuring this router, and then I'll finish doing the server here. So let's go into the router. Configure the Windows on here. Okay, go into local storage. Okay, actually forget that. Let's do this. Right click down on the bottom left, right click your start menu halfway up, computer management. And once we get inside of computer management services, okay, expand services, left-hand side, click services once, scroll down and click on SSDP. Automatic, hit OK. Okay, UPnP, hit OK. Perfect. Okay, so we're on SVR1, we're on SVR1. Okay, so SSDP, UPnP are both turned on and configured. Now what we're going to do over here is we're going to go into our File Explorer, and we're going to right-click Network, go to Properties. Okay, Windows Defender Firewall on the bottom left. Firewall on or off, off and off. Okay, now back out of this, go into Advanced Sharing and turn on. Okay, open up, turn on, and open up and turn on. Okay, Advanced Sharing, change Advanced Sharing settings. Turn on. Turn on. Turn on. And turn on. Okay. All right. So Defender Firewall, Advanced Sharing, advanced options for it. So now for our adapter settings, we're going to go into here. Adapter settings for it. Properties. IPv4. And we're on SVR. We're on our SVR one. We're not on the router or the DC one. So this one's going to get this IP address, the 0.3. SVR is going to go 192.168.0.3. Okay, 0.1 for the default gateway, and we'll give it the the domain controller's IP address for the DNS server. Hit OK. Hit close. Okay, perfect. Last thing we have to change on our Edmonton SVR1, left click on local server. Click here on computer name. And we'll change our computer name. EDM. Oops. Hit change. EDM. Then SVR1. And hit OK. Okay, hit apply and hit restart now. I noticed that when I made the name change on the DC1, I made the name change actually inside a computer description rather than the correct way, which would be to rename it. Well, maybe we did rename it. No, we have to go back in here. See computer name, it's still the alphanumeric one on our DC1. I want to rename it to the Edmonton DC. So I have to hit the gray change box, come in here, EDM-DC1. Okay, and hit OK. Hit OK, and hit close, and hit restart now. Awesome. Okay, so we got, let's see, these three machines made. DC1 configured, SVR1 configured, router. Let's finish doing our router right here. So for the router, resize our screen for the router. Okay, now what we want to do here on the router, same thing. Let's go back into our taskbar on the bottom. Okay, so go into hit the start, right click your start menu. We'll go into computer management. Okay, on computer management, click on services here. Okay, double click services. Same thing, SSDP and UPnP, guys. SSDP, UPnP. Automatic. Okay. Then UPnP. Nice. Okay, after this now, network properties. Off and off. Hit okay. And change adapter settings. IPv4. And again, we're going to give the router the 0.1. Give the router the 0.1. And we'll give it the DC1 IP address of 0.2 for the DNS. So IP address of your Edmonton router, 192.168.0.1. Default classy, IE /24, IE 255.255.255.0. And your default gateway, 192.168.0.1. Hit OK. And we're going to hit close. Awesome. Okay, so now we have all three of our Windows Server machines configured. What we want to do right now then is we'll pop back to Hyper-V Manager and we'll come into the Edmonton Client 1. Okay, double click and we'll turn on. Okay, so now we're going to use our Windows activation keys. To find your Windows activation key, just do this. Here's your simplest process in the world. Open up a tab in the web browser, hit the plus sign, and we're going to Google this out. Go to Windows 10 Pro activation key. Let's find something from GitHub that we can use. So we're just going to scroll down right here. GitHub to Windows product keys. So come all the way down here and I'll circle the one that we want. GitHub, an online repository for different data containers. Tons of nice free nuggets you can use for your Windows and Linux distros. All right, scroll down. We're going to look for our activation keys. This is Windows 11. Remember, we need Windows 10. So come on down to Windows 10. You'll find this one right here, MH3W. Okay, so this one always works very well. MH37W, so I'm just going to circle the one that we're going to go with here. MH37W. Okay, N47XK. N47XK. V7XM9. V7XM9. C7227. C7227. Okay, and then GCQ G9. Next. Accept the license terms. Okay, do a custom install. Hit next. And we'll just do a quick pause here. And then once these files install, we'll finish wrapping up our installation of the Windows 10. Awesome. Now what we're going to do while we wait for our Windows 10 workstation to finish installing, let's go ahead and set up our Edmonton DC1 as an actual domain controller. So once we go into, when you relaunch your Edmonton DC1, okay, we're going to come down here and find on our bottom taskbar, just resize the screen size again. On your bottom taskbar, one down, and we're going to go into Server Manager, which is this icon right down here. Okay, once we get into this icon here, we're going to go ahead and select, go to Manage, up here, Add Roles and Features, hit Next, hit Next, hit Next, and we're just going to keep these defaults, and we'll go ahead and add the Active Directory domain services. So second from the top on the first page of services, add and accept all these features. Then what we need to do is scroll down, and we also want to add the DNS server, add features, next, 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 install. Okay, so we'll wait for this installation to begin. We're going to go on down the line with each of our machines here. So SVR1, same thing. We're going to also add the ADDS for this, just so we can go through of how to turn it off after too. Next. Next. And also select DNS server. So we're going to put on Active Directory domain services and the DNS server. Hit next, hit next, 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 and install. And let's go back here to Edmonton Router. Edmonton Router does not need to have anything installed in terms of for any of your server roles and features, because we're just going to use the Edmonton Router simply to simulate and act as the router in our virtual network here. Okay, not going to treat it as a server, not putting any of the services that we would normally provision on a server. All right, so we built 4 machines. Let's see. So DC1, go back, take a look at where this guy's going. Edmonton DC1, almost finished adding those. Edmonton server 1. Is adding the Active Directory. Edmonton router good to go. And our Edmonton client number 1 with the Windows 10 still waiting on this installation to finish. Okay, so now we have our region back. So we're going to go ahead and add the Canada region for our Windows 10 client machine. When it comes time for language, we'll go with the US English option and skip this keyboard. All right, so let's finish up with our setup for the personal use here. So we're going to finish configuring our Edmonton client 1. Okay, do an offline account. Okay, limited experience on the bottom left. And the name that we're going to use. Okay, so when we get to these extra windows, trying to add on these extra bells and whistles, just negate them, turn them off, hit not now, then hit next. Yeah, go no, accept, and no, accept, and accept on the bottom, and no. So to hit no for all the extra advertising and all the extra little no extras that they're trying to do there for you. Hit skip here. We can hit not now for Cortana. Don't engage Cortana. Okay, so we've set up the username, the password, and the security questions for the Windows 10. So the last thing is, because it's a client machine, it's going to take just a few more minutes to get configured. So I'll end the recording here. Your machine will come back online and you're good to go. And we will begin the Windows Admin Security Course 2 assignments in the very next video. Talk to you guys soon. Have an awesome day. Take care.